Well, folks, we have some nerfs on the way, confirmed just an hour or two ago from Dina Ayala, senior game designer for Hearthstone, on Twitter. We got to talk about what's coming, when it's coming, and what I think might be changed.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
That's right. As you can see from this tweet, another balance patch is being planned. More information next week, which is just a couple days away, probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere around there. And then the patch likely to hit, I'd say, a week after that if we follow past precedents. So maybe like 2 weeks away for the patch. And most importantly, planning to nerf a couple Galakrond decks. I would say Warlock and Warrior would be at the top of their list based on stats we can see from HS Replay. And also maybe some touches to Pirate Warrior and Death Rattle Rogue as well. So it sounds like at least 4 decks going to be impacted by these nerfs. And I wanted to explore how I think Blizzard is going to do that. Now, before I do get into my nerfs, I just want to mention we are doing a giveaway right now to celebrate the new year 2020. And I'm giving away 20 different $20 Blizzard gift cards, which will end on January 20th. I'm sure you detect the theme here. There's a link in the description below and in the pinned comment below if you want to participate. It's the same deal as before, just like following me on Discord and Twitter and Twitch. You can get some entries, and I'm going to select 20 people randomly on January 20th to get some free packs, basically. Or if you're in the Europe, maybe not packs, but some alternative prize, so it's open to everybody. No big deal. So check that out in the description below. In the meantime, let's take a look at some of the cards I think are going to get changed in this upcoming patch. Up first here is a card and deck I think will probably be at the top of mind for Blizzard, which is Galakrond Warrior. I think if there's any deck that's like kind of iffy for me right now, that might be the one. And in particular, Scion of Ruin feels like just a ridiculous play. When this thing hits, it's such a big pile of stats. Instantly reactive, trades super well up and across. And if you roll it off Galakrond, it's even more obscene, duplicating or I guess triplicating actually that buff from Galakrond's Battlecry, making Scion of Ruin just feel really, really bad. So I think there's a chance Blizzard just takes it from 3 attack down to 2, so it becomes a little bit less impactful as a mid-game removal tool, the big powerful swing turn. It's going to take a couple more of the, you might have to run 2 into something to kill it instead of just 1, thereby reducing the effectiveness, giving you less clean trades, less efficient of a play. Essentially, it also could just go to 4 mana. Of course, Blizzard likes to do that as well. Now, I want to note, I picked Scion of Ruin here as the kind of nerf target for Galakrond Warrior because specifically, I don't think they're going to change the Galakronds. They have this really systematic number thing going where each of them are 7 mana and each of them have this scale as they upgrade and they all have 5 armor. And I think Blizzard's, you know, they love that consistency and I don't think they'll want to change that. So they're going to tackle the cards around it instead of the cards in it, as we've already seen with previous nerfs to Shaman, right? Galakrond itself didn't get changed. It was support cards that empowered the deck that got changed. I think the same thing will happen here with Warrior and probably Scion of Ruin, because if you look at the other like invoke or support cards for Warrior, they're not like that crazy good on their own. This one has the highest or scariest like draw and win rates, so it seems like the most correct target for me when it comes to nerfs. And then if we head over to Warlock, I think this will surprise a lot of people that this is even like being discussed. But sure enough, I think Dragonblight Cultist, similarly to Scion of Ruin, is the Galakrond support card that's going to get nerfed for Warlock. And Dean did say specifically, you know, a couple Galakrond decks or, you know, multiple Galakrond decks. I don't think Rogue is necessarily a target. If you look at HS Replay, that's a tier 2 deck. Right now, the tier 1 decks are Galakrond Warlock and Galakrond Warrior. So I think those are the 2 that are going to be most mindful. In particular, I know Blizzard cares a lot about like lower ranked play and like that big portion of the player base, like the rank 20 to rank 10 kind of folks. And I think Galakrond Warrior does even better, or excuse me, Galakrond Warlock does even better at those ranks because Zoo is a pretty simple style of play for a lot of people. So it succeeds at lower levels of play, making it even more rife to be targeted. So essentially, Dragonblight Cultist, if you look at Galakrond Warlock, actually has like the craziest mulligan and drawn win rates in the deck compared to other things. Fiendish Rites is also very powerful, to be clear. So I think that's another possibility as well. I do not think we'll see the neutral Galakrond cards dinged at all, because you wouldn't want to punish like Galakrond Priest, for instance, for these other decks being powerful. So I think, the neutral ones will dodge it, which really leaves Dragonblight Cultist to me as the kind of target or swingiest of all the Galakrond support cards, because sometimes this comes down as like, a 6/1 that just like runs over opponents and does tons of damage. And that's probably problematic in Blizzard's eyes. So Dragonblight Cultist to me seems like the right target, although Fiendish Rites makes a lot of sense as well. But keep an eye on, one of the 2 or 3 Galakrond-specific Invoke cards getting nerfed in a fashion very similar to this. So now let's talk about Inkar, because it was mentioned that Pirate Warrior might need a look. And, I mean, without question, Inkar right now is one of the strongest cards, like, ever in Hearthstone if you look at its mulligan win rate. It has a 70% mulligan win rate according to HS Replay right now, which is like on par or higher than things like Prince Keleseth, which used to be just like an instant win sometimes if you hit it early in the game. And that's because it turns out Inkar right now is really good at 2 things. It's actually not a bad tempo play on turn 3. The weapon itself is still relevant. It can still pump out a significant amount of face damage. So it's not problematic for either addressing the board or just running over your opponent. The 2 things Pirate Warrior likes to do early: keep minions in check so their minions can create pressure or just smork super hard. And beyond that, it also generates value for you so that you can keep the pressure rolling on future turns. And in fact, sometimes hit things like Parachute Brigand to even increase your tempo on a future turn. So Inkar is basically good at everything. Good at early significant tempo and pressure, and in the back end on value. What you could do is move it to 4 mana instead of 3, making it far less impactful of a tempo play. Like, suddenly, this is a poorer interaction in that early game turns. It's a little bit harder to play. Spending 4 mana is like, oh, it's a really big commitment. The 2 damage doesn't trade as well by the time you start getting into like turn 4 and turn 5. It's no longer like cleaning up early minions that contest. It's like trying to trade into bigger stuff. So this really cuts away one of the legs of Inkar's and turns it more into a resource generation or kind of value keep-up tool, so it's not good at everything. And that's fine if Pirate Warrior has a way to get a few extra cards and kind of make that second mid to late game push to try to get there. But if you give them everything right off the bat, it just tends to run over people and overwhelm them, and that's a pretty bad experience. So I think this is the right way to fix Inkar. If you just went to like 2 durability, for instance, I think you'd retain too much of that tempo power and still a little bit of resources, but pushing it to 4 is a really significant difference when it comes to the efficiency of this thing in those early to mid game boards. So I do think Inkar probably needs to be changed, and in my opinion, this is the right way to do that. And then finally here, we've got Necreum Apothecary, because it was mentioned that Death Rattle Rogue needs a look. Now, when you look at like win rates for Death Rattle Rogue, it's pretty solidly tier 2 right now. It does not look like an overpowered deck, but I will say that Necreum Apothecary does still present some pretty unfun moments when it just like steals a game out from under you. Like coining this on turn 3, getting it out that early can really create some problems. It's got that kind of spiky win rate that we never like to see. Old cards in the past like Conjurer's Calling, Luna's Pocket Galaxy, when it was buffed, were the same kind of thing where it just tended to win games like just very decisively if you hit it at the right moment. Those cards aren't usually very enjoyable for the people facing it. I mean, it can be fun sometimes, of course, if you're playing it, but everybody else has a terrible time. So since Apothecary does lean a little bit in that way, I'm sure that's why Blizzard is considering the changes despite the win rate looking like it's in a pretty healthy state. I don't necessarily mind it that much. It's not a super popular archetype, at least in my local meta. I'm not seeing it all that much. So I would be fine with this card staying as is, but moving it to 5 mana would slow that down a little bit, delay that big swing turn, that crazy power spike. And that's generally all we need when we see those. If you delay that power spike, it usually works out pretty well. We've seen that nerf happen a few times. The cards often remain relevant, but they feel much better to play against. And that might be a good way to do this. There's not really a lot of other ways to change Necreum Apothecary, because you're going to end up in a spot where, like, if you nerf its health, for instance, it's like, oh, well, did it actually get a little better? Because it's easier to kill it in those sorts of scenarios. You can certainly move it to 1 attack, but you don't usually care about the body on this card at all. So I think it has to be a mana change to make it any sort of significance at all. So I think it's got to go from 4 to 5. If you're going to touch it at all, this is probably the way to do it. And that said, looking forward to seeing what the actual nerfs are going to be. I think we'll get pretty close. Those seem like the most obvious target choices to me. I should also note that Dean mentioned there are some tweaks coming to Battlegrounds as well. Some heroes are going to get some small tweaks. Probably things like Edwin are going to get pulled back. Maybe Rafam. I could imagine their hero power is going to 2 gold instead of 1 gold to try to limit that a little bit. Maybe we'll get some buffs on some guys as well. Also, a lot of Battleground stuff planned for the next 2 to 3 months, which sounds amazing, by the way. I'm super excited. I hope they stagger it nicely with constructed content so we can focus on the new stuff all the time instead of kind of having to choose which one we want to support. So some really interesting changes. I'm glad to see Blizzard making proactive adjustments to the meta, trying to keep things balanced. I am still worried because I don't think we're all that bad right now. So we'll have to kind of tread with caution, see how it goes, but it's better to be active and reactive than not pay attention at all. So this is a good change in my mind. That said, still curious what you guys have to say. What cards do you think are going to get nerfed? What cards deserve to be nerfed? Should we have nerfs at all? Are you going to win my giveaway? Linked in the description and in the comments below. Could be. Who knows? All that said, though, thanks much for watching this video. And until next time, game on.
Dragons take flight above the ice and snow.